Hi, everybody. Welcome. Anara Farmers Team Chat. So I thought it would be great for all of the Anara Farmers co-founders to get together and just talk a little bit more about what Anara Farmers Market is and the birth of Anara Farmers Market, and just sort of start to answer all these questions that everyone has. So inquiring minds want to know, how did Anara come to be? Greg and Lisa, do you want to talk a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, it's kind of a long journey. I'll try and keep it short. This is actually our second attempt at a kind of a agricultural-based farmers market or agricultural-based social network. You guys might not even know this. We actually tried to do a website called equinetackroom.com. It was a kind of a social network for the horse community because we were really into horses and trying to just like build a community.
Before Facebook was popular, it was during the MySpace time.
2006.
Oh, wow. MySpace.
Yeah, it was, I think it was 2006. It failed miserably.
We couldn't get anybody to...
What? And here's some interesting learning from that is it failed because we didn't have a team. We had no idea how to advertise it. It was just basically this great product that nobody knew about. So we didn't know how to market it. We didn't know how to fund it. There's just so much we didn't know. I've come a long ways since then. I've actually been a part of some startups that are really successful. One of them is actually an enterprise social network, probably worth over $50 million. Well, worth over $50 million before COVID. I don't know where it's at. Yeah, but yeah, come a long ways. And the most important learning from that is it takes a team. And that's why we're here today is I know not to work on stuff myself anymore because you need people to kind of support.
And what stemmed it was we have a farm and selling animals. Facebook has really cracked down and doesn't allow the sale of animals. Well, we raise poultry and they, we make some income selling the extras. Yeah. And we aren't able to on Facebook anymore. So Craigslist is our only option. And I don't necessarily like selling on Craigslist because I don't know who my buyer is.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know who's coming to your house.
Yeah.
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 And same thing with buying. When I'm buying, I prefer to look somebody up, look at their farm, look at their person, who they are before I purchase a bird from them also.
Yeah. So there's definitely a need. And then, so when COVID hit, I'd actually left my position at the bank Aslo, which is where I met Nick. And I had time on my hands. So I wanted to do another startup because I've done several startups before. I thought I was actually going to do a pawn software for pawn shops because we had a friend who kept telling us the software in the pawn industry is horrible and you would make a killing if you made pawn shop software. And it's funny, I did the market research on it and there's absolutely no money in pawn shop software.
And just to clarify, that's PAWN shops.
Yes, pawn, like going to pawn stuff. Yeah, because in my mind, I thought, okay, COVID's hitting. We're going to be in lockdown. People might need access to money and the pawn industry might grow. So that was my thinking. And after the market research, and so we also, who's not here with us tonight is David Hirschfeld, who kind of joined the Anara team too as our mentor. When I left Aslo, he made it really clear that he still wanted to be involved with whatever project I was in. So I asked him to be our mentor. So we have a mentor who's got many years of product and product experience. So he's part of our team. And when I told him about the pawn shop, he's very encouraging. But I realized that together we kind of realized that there's just no money in this and we need to find something else. And that's kind of what pivoted into what we were experiencing with the farm. Well, maybe there's something that we can do with that. And because I had just come out of the fintech industry, I was really interested in kind of how I could take advantage of my banking knowledge. I was starting to get into cryptocurrency. I've been in cryptocurrency for a while, but I was starting to get into the programming side of cryptocurrency. I'd been using it personally, but I was learning about Stellar. So Stellar is actually one of my favorite cryptocurrencies because it solves all the problems that blockchains are dealing with. That's my affinity for it. I don't know if it really does solve all of the problems, but in my mind it does. I love Stellar. So so I, working with David, I wanted to come up with another idea, and I started looking for business partners in the cryptocurrency space, and reaching out to my network. I had on LinkedIn, I had reached out to everybody in my network on there, and Dana from Aslo spoke up and said that she had just been speaking to this wonderful person who was helping with the TD blockchain conferences and I believe website and newsletters and stuff like that. And she said, you two sound like you would be a really good fit for each other. So she introduced Carrie and I, and that was in July of 2020, I think it was.
I think it was June.
June?
Oh, yeah.
So a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so we started talking. And I think that is, so we entered in the Stellar Lab Fund, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did we solidify the idea before we entered that? We did, because we entered it with Anara Farmers Market.
Yeah. So that's how you and I met, which is an interesting story in itself, because I'm like a big advocate about, like paying attention to the types of foods I buy and like who is processing my meat, and like trying to just be more healthy about the choices I was making. And there was a documentary on Netflix, and I can't remember the name of it, but my husband watched it and he tried to convince me that we needed to become vegetarian. And I was like, no way, no how. I love meat, not going to happen. But I liked the conversation, because it made me realize that I do need to be more aware of like the types of businesses and companies that I am supporting to get my meat, because there are ones out there that I just would not support in general. So knowing where you are getting your food sources is really important, and supporting those people, which turns out obviously local farms. So I ended up buying, we ended up buying a half a cow from a friend of ours one year. Never done that before. And I was just like, okay, let's make this decision. I'm not going to be vegetarian, but I'm definitely going to like support somebody who I know where the food's coming from. So I bought a half a cow, and it was like the best experience ever. And I was like, why have we never done this before? Like, this meat tastes so much better than like getting it from a store, and who knows how old it is. And so thus was my adventure with like trying to find more local farms and ranchers that I could like buy a cow from, or, potentially partially a pig or a lamb or chickens or fresh eggs, and finding out how difficult that actually is. It took me so many hours a day to just try to find farms to call, only to find out there was a wait list, or it wasn't the right season. And then I had to wait 6 months for whatever, and then only maybe. So it was a very frustrating process. And I remember over the years, I was just like super frustrated. It even happened with Christmas trees. I don't know how to find a Christmas tree farm. I went on Google and like spent hours looking for Christmas tree farms. And I was like, why is this so difficult to find the things that I want locally? So interestingly enough, it spurned last year with COVID, where grocery stores were out of things. I heard reports and talked to farmers, even in California, who had to burn their crops because they just had an overabundance amount of food, nowhere to go. And they were just turning over their crops and burning it, because they were like, restaurants are closed, hotels are closed, supply chain broken, and I'm like, right now in Portland, we have 3-hour waits at the food banks. Like, why isn't the connection between the local farms and the food banks like happening, and where can we make that better? And I just remember having conversations with a friend of mine who is also into crypto. And I was running this blockchain group called TF Blockchain local in Portland. So I was very much integrated in that technology sector. So her and I were talking even about like ways we can use blockchain to, track produce and inventory and supply chain efforts and all this kind of stuff. And so that sort of spurred that conversation. And then probably like a month later, Chanel and I were just talking one day, and she was like, hey, I have this idea. I want to be more involved in the farming. And I want to create this way where people can access food. And I was like, oh my gosh, girl, like I've been talking about this forever. You know, and so her and I'm like, we've been friends forever. And I'm like, we're just now having this conversation, which was great. It was perfect timing for everything. So her and I had a conversation about like, how can we make this better? And I'm like, I don't know, let's figure it out. And then, as you mentioned, Greg, like Dana reached out to me because I know her through that TF blockchain networking event. And she was like, hey, I want to introduce you to somebody about blockchain. I was like, okay, that's cool. I'll talk to him, you know, I'll help support him however I can. And we had that first call, and you were kind of sharing with me your vision for an enterprise software solution, like around banking, and you kind of didn't really know what it was yet, but I was like, okay, like let's just talk weekly and see how I can help you. Like if it's a fit, it's a fit, you know, we'll go from there. And then the very next week we talked again, and you're like, hey, my wife Lisa had this awesome idea. What do you think about having a farmer's market? And I was like, I'm in.
Ah,
I'm like, just like divine timing of everything. And I was just like, okay, Greg is a person I'm supposed to like connect with and bring this product to life. And so that's kind of how I got involved with that. And then obviously bringing Chanel on board.
yeah.
Yeah. So I would love to hear like Chanel and Nick, like what is it that drew you to being involved as a co-founder on Anara? Like obviously I sort of shared a little bit of that, but you have such a better story obviously than me in that little snippet.
Why don't you go ahead and go first, Chanel?
Okay. Well, Carrie, you were right. We had COVID as well. I had a company for about 15 years and had just sold it and was still working with the new owners right before COVID hit. And it was mostly just with transitioning. It just happened to be that COVID hit at the exact same time that the transitioning was coming to an end. COVID didn't help any. So it was kind of perfect timing on my end. And I was thinking the exact same thing. As the one thing I'm passionate about is farmers. Not only because myself and my family have a small farm, but my family has larger farms, they're larger farmers, and just being around the community and knowing how much of an impact Facebook and other social media has become with the agricultural community and how much it's lacking for the agricultural community. And so literally just looking for resources of how can we help bridge this gap? Like where can we have social media, online marketplace that happened to hit right at the same time COVID hit, that so many things were aligning. And I said, I want to, you know, I'm not an engineer, so I'm sure as heck not going to go try to make myself some website. But how can I be a part of a team that is? And then miraculously Carrie came about with this awesome idea. So again, it all kind of fell into place. But the desire and the passion to work with farmers is where my initial interest came into play.
Cool, thank you.
I guess my
Yeah.
genesis here came from my relationship with Greg. So I'm very much a people-focused person, and Greg is a fantastic guy. And ultimately, when it came down to, and I'm not just saying that because you're sitting there.
Sure.
Ultimately, it came down to the fact that his vision for something that enabled more personal freedom, right? Because when it comes down to our food and the things that we eat and where we buy them and what our decisions are, we need more, we don't need less. And I think that kind of ties it all together in what we're trying to provide as a service to not only the agricultural community, but to the world in the end, right? It's a way for people to be able to get access to what they want without having it being, you know, controlled or manipulated or whatever, that they can have free commerce without any restrictions. So it's, you know, it's exciting to work with people that are, you know, the big thing for me is it's just exciting to work for people that are visionary and have a passion about something. That's what draws me to Anara personally.
Yeah. What would of all the things you just said, Nick, like what's one thing you think that really excites you about what we're building? Like what's the one thing that you think is the biggest impact for you?
I think the biggest impact is just the community, right? So we're building a cohesive community of people with a similar viewpoint. And sorry for the banging on the floor, but it's about, to me, it's always about people, right? I mean, there's always different ways that people connect. And we mentioned a few like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever the heck it is out there, but those are all becoming less and less free. And that's what drives me. I mean, my family as well is also, they're farmers. You know, you can see my Montana shirt in the video, but my family's been farmers in Montana since 1901. And we've done cattle and wheat and barley and safflower and all these different products. And it's becoming harder and harder to just exist, even not only as a small farmer, but as a farmer at all. And it's because the markets are getting closed by the big farms and government regulation and other things that are keeping people from being able to do the things that there's actually a demand, but they can't get access to the market. And I think that's what Anara can provide. I mean, that's really exciting to me because, I mean, you know, if you don't get the theme here, I'm kind of libertarian, kind of very, you know, my idea of a good government agency is one where there's just a guy sitting in an office and he might have a phone that turns on once every half an hour a day, but otherwise he doesn't bother everybody. So anyway, I don't want to go down the crazy train with the libertarian thing.
Yeah, I think kind of to echo that too, for me, it's using blockchain in a way that can create that independence. And that's really exciting. That's kind of what originally got me very interested in decentralized ledger technology or blockchain in general, is that idea of like farmers can be independent of some sort of governing, well, I wouldn't say governing, but third party, you know, like they can interact with consumers directly. You know, that we can make it so that they can trade through a token without having to rely on US dollars. And right now with inflation so high and things are so expensive, like just going to the grocery store the other day, I'm like, on average, I don't get a lot of stuff. There's only 2 of us in my household. I go and I get a bag from, you know, shop at Whole Foods, and, you know, maybe on average, maybe $75 for a bag of groceries for a few days. It was $100 the other day. And I was like, what just happened? I bought all my normal stuff. And somehow it's like $100. And I was like, man, you know, everything is going up. And so the interesting thing for me too, is like, people think that like larger corporations can solve the hunger problems and the food distribution. And I read an article and listened to a podcast the other day that said, no, really the solutions to our food supply chain and our increase in population is really focusing on local communities, like having these small communities support each other. Small farms, micro farms, hobby farmers, like these are the people that can actually, if we can get them to the consumer, are the ones that are going to be able to support and sustain the local economies, not these big Fred Meyer's, Kroger's importing from Canada and Mexico and wherever else we import. Like we need to really focus on being sustainable in our local economies. And so I think that's what really excites me about Anara, is like me as a consumer connecting with you as a farmer and being like, I can get everything I need right here in my own hometown. I don't need to go to a grocery store, maybe for some small things, but like that's what excites me.
Yeah, and that's the way it was meant to be, right? I mean, it's great. It's great to have, don't get me wrong. I mean, I go to Target, I go to Walmart, I go to Fred Meyer, I go to Albertsons. I've gone to all those places before, but to be able to have options that allow you to have a broader or a better choice, and to be able to enable people to really leverage their creativity and their ability to produce something that's of use is what it's all about. I mean, that's why those stores came into existence in the first place, really, is because somebody had an idea and they pursued it. But those options to do that are being limited now.
Greg and Lisa, like, what are your thoughts around that? What's one thing that excites you about this?
I'm excited for a place to find like local food and meat and chicken and
not be banned because you posted a picture of an egg
or a fresh egg. Like Facebook, you're not allowed to post eggs for sale.
Or horseshoes or saddles or
anything made of leather.
Yeah.
So if it's vinyl, you can post the saddle.
Yeah.
So, and I really, we
Crazy.
really recently realized that I can't eat chicken from a grocery store
Says the chicken farmer.
because it's processed the way, I think the way it's processed and packaged, whatever the chemical, whatever they put in it to keep it to last longer, does not like my stomach. And it's amazing. We've recently
Wow.
processed some chickens and quail,
Mhm.
and they taste so different than the grocery store.
You really do.
And and I feel that if this is available there are some local farms in the area who process birds and sell them processed, which we have not done yet. But there are some that do. And I think to have that available to people, there's a big difference in the quality of the meat
Yeah.
and the food and the healthy. It's a lot. I believe it, the difference in the taste, and it doesn't make me sick, makes me think that the quality is way better.
Yeah. Which is a good thing to encourage, is encourage people to be self-sufficient and to work together. I think if anything, COVID has shown us the dependency on single sources of things to where what happens when those go away, if we can, decentralize things and spread it out, then people are more capable of supporting each other. As far as for me, for what's most exciting, I'm a technologist. So I got into this because I wanted to do a business using blockchain. And you might ask yourself, so how does blockchain help a farmer's market or help somebody selling eggs? And I think the simplest way to explain that is I want to be able to give value to those things that people are doing. So, you're raising chickens, you're raising eggs, maybe you grow blueberries, maybe you have a service that you provide. How can we assign a value to that so that we can actually trade? So maybe somebody who produces eggs wants to trade with somebody who has blueberries. Well, how do you determine how many blueberries a dozen eggs buy? And that problem was just like, that would be a really cool thing to tackle. And I think the blockchain is a really good way of doing that, because you get these token pairs to where like $1 equals 60,000 Bitcoin, or no, 1 Bitcoin equals $60,000. So that same concept to where you can get these like pairs, you can establish values. And I thought that, man, that would be a really cool thing if you could kind of establish a marketplace where people can take what they have and use that as an asset that you could trade.
I think that is great too. But I was going to touch on, as far as I'd rather support people as well,
Yeah.
who are, humanely raising their animals, unlike the factory farms, because I don't know, some people may think that it's cruel.
Yeah.
But, my chickens are going to lay eggs whether I eat their eggs or not. So they might as well get used.
And people need to eat.
And I'd rather support a farmer who raises their cattle free range and their birds, and they have a happy life.
Yeah. Support.
Well, and you said the same thing. Like, Lisa, you're right. Eggs are just an example, but how many people, we even raise eggs and we have buyers for our eggs, but most of the time on small farms, the buyers for those products are usually they're built by other relationships. It's not typically, you might drive around and see people with a eggs for sale sign, and it always makes me wonder how many random people are just driving by saying, oh, I want their eggs, when you can just go to the store. And what it really comes down to is, where's the relationship? Because like you said, do they know how they were processed? Do they know what they're eating? All those things matter, and they taste significantly different than what you get in the store.
They
But
do.
you would know without a relationship. And Anara gives you that relationship, that ability to talk with another farmer in your community and know, what you're getting.
Yes.
What is that one thing that you think would drive people to Anara? Like, what's the one thing, Chanel, that you are excited about, and what do you think people would be driven to Anara the most about?
I would say all of the above, but most importantly is building the relationships, because with any business venture, whether it be a trading, whether it be, from monetary side of things, it's the relationship that continues to keep the customer and also keeps the farmer. And without the two, it doesn't last long. Look at the large companies like we're talking about. Like, if they're not relationship driven, then they don't last. And there's no place for agriculture right now to really build those relationships. They're dwindling by the wayside.
What about you, Nick?
Well, that's depressing.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, not now that we have Anara.
we want to help them. Yeah.
Anara wants to fix that
we
and
wanna
bring
fix
the
that.
customers to them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
For sure.
So,
for sure.
yeah, and this is open to anybody, but like, why Anara over any other social channels? I mean, I think we kind of already started talking about that, but you know, one thing that we've talked about in general as a team is like, well, Facebook is already doing the marketplace, like it's, you know, and you know, they are, but like, what is the advantages of them, of people coming to Anara versus like a Craigslist or a Facebook or whatever?
Well,
Anybody?
I can
Yeah.
tell you from the social media side, there's multiple social media platforms out there. There's a landscape for different communities. So yeah, Facebook is probably one of the largest, but it's still very focused on its own agenda. Yet you also have bloggers who have social media posts, and you've got photographers, and you have gamers, and you have millions of other social media platforms out there that cater to specific community. Why not Anara? Is there one that caters for agriculture? No. So why not?
Yeah.
Well, Facebook doesn't allow, you know, the animal sales, certain things that you talk about. The groups have been threatened to get banned, and the quail groups recently. So it really, I think there's a need for the social, you know, the social aspect and the sellings. The reason I don't like Craigslist is the communication is through email, or I have to give somebody my phone number.
Yeah.
And I hate giving people I don't know my phone number.
Yeah.
So I love the Anara app. I recently did a sale with somebody who, in the bottom of I still do use Craigslist. On the bottom of my Craigslist ad, I say, check out the ads on Anara. And somebody from Craigslist to Anara to communicate with me through Anara, because she loved having the app and the way that she could see who I was and I could see who she was. She uploaded a picture of her and her dog, and she wanted that personal touch. She was really excited about Anara.
Yeah. There's a lot. There seems to be a lot of excitement about. I literally haven't talked to a single person who's like, "That's a dumb idea."
Well, you know, and the messaging worked flawlessly. You know, back it notified me every time. Notified her. We did the whole transaction through Anara.
Amazing.
Except for the money, you know, because
Yeah.
we don't have that.
We're working on them.
I can't wait till that gets released.
Yeah, we're working on the money side of things. I'm excited about that. Just curious on like just the different possibilities of how we initially, when we first started this, because we won the Stellar Lab Fund, that was our initial focus. And the software that we built, we actually built pretty much a full banking system that worked with the cryptocurrency. It was just too complicated. People didn't understand how that they can use this in their life. So now we're taking a step back and looking at, okay, so how can we work this in to where it's more natural, what people are used to? It's simple, get rid of the complexity. And I'm super excited about what's going to come out of that.
Yeah, awesome. No, I think that's really good information, and something I've been thinking about too, you know, when we talk about just even social channels, you know, we do have companies who are similar in what we're working towards, you know. So we've got a company called Barn to Door, and then Chanel and I were just talking today about another company called Local Line, who really focus on the market e-com side of things, and they don't really connect with the social aspect of things, you know. So when we talk about who our competitors are and like what sets us apart, as Chanel's mentioned and Lisa's mentioned many times, is it's that relationship building. People want to go and know who they're doing transactions with, be able to ask questions, be able to see reviews and comments on products. Is like, how many of us like shop via Yelp? Like, I can't tell you how many times I'm on Yelp, or like, you know, looking up restaurant reviews on Google or whatever. Like, that's how I make my decisions on like where I'm going and like who I'm shopping with. So, you know, I think Anara is that difference, right? Like we're not just like an e-com site. Yes, we are that, but we're also that personal side of the shopping experience. So I think that's really important for people to know too.
Yeah, it's great.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Any other things anybody wants to add?
No, I think this is great. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Where do I sign up?
I know, right? Well, that's a good
Seriously,
point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why don't you say the website name?
Yeah, so all of the things, we have all of the things right now. So you can go to anara.farm and sign up on the website, or you can download our app on the Apple Store and Android Store, Google Play. So we're on both apps right now. You can sign up through the app. You can follow us. Please follow us on Instagram and Facebook, share, like, all the things. Thumbs up to this video. It's our first video on YouTube. Subscribe. We have lots of stuff in store for upcoming podcasts. Please forgive us for this crazy YouTube thing. This is our first one, but we're excited. We're doing it. So stay
Sorry for
tuned.
the kids and the barn cat and the thing floating through.
Yep.
Bedding down the animals and all the things, and my cat yowling in the background. Yeah, it's like a whole thing around here. But awesome. Well, thank you everyone for your time. Enjoy.
Thanks, guys.
Have a great night.
Woohoo.